Eddie's really rocking it, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. All right, we're loading now into the game. So here we are, and in the bottom right-hand side of the map, it is for Team Liquid, the young star that has won this event more than anyone else. It is Clem.
And in the top left-hand side, our blue pros player is going to be GunGFuBanDa. Yeah, I think for GunGfu, just somehow keeping control of the first 6-7 minutes of the game is obviously that's essential for anybody, right? But if Clem gets control of that, he will absolutely take you to the cleaners for everything that you own, and he will just win the game from there. So these first few minutes, the choice of build, going to be very important. Yeah, like I say, I think you try Phoenix. If that doesn't work in game 1, maybe you try something different in game 2. We start on Moondance, which is already a short map, so you've got to be afraid of those, Clem counterattacks and Clem pushes just very early on here.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen Clem and Hero Marine both be able to just even take units at timings that Protoss will not expect, and just by virtue of not making their own units because you're not expecting to push yet, it can get a little bit dangerous. GunGFuBanDa is going to pull a lot of probes to deal with his eBay as fast as possible. And yeah, I mean, how do you like this eBay block?
Yeah, I mean, it's Clem taking control of the game, right? It's exactly what GunGfu doesn't want. It's hard to stop an eBay block, but then you're playing the Terran's game. Terran can go factory from this before they expand, so anything you were planning to do that was maybe very quickly aggressive is shut down. The aggression from Clem starts hitting a little bit sooner as well. I like it. To me, this is just something that, throws the Protoss off more than it throws the Terran off nowadays. So, again, if you're more comfortable in the matchup, then, yeah, I think an engineering bay block is almost always a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, GunGfu reacted really well. I think he was kind of he is still at 18 out of 16 in the main. So, just an extra couple of probes that weren't mining as efficiently as they could with that probe pool, and did good to section off the SCV. So he gets his Nexus down as well at a very reasonable timing. But here comes the first Reaper, and GunGfu finishes his Reaper wall off just in time for that.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I mentioned expecting the factory, but there was never a second gas from Clem. So he just goes expansion and 3 racks behind this. So a little bit odd with the engineering bay block, right? Because the engineering bay block does cut into your minerals a little bit, your CC timing, your barracks timing. And 3 racks is the one build that probably is affected by that more than anything else. So yeah, a little interesting there, and maybe a little bit unorthodox, and maybe a way for Clem to catch GunGfu off guard as well.
Yeah, for sure. And you were talking about how Phoenix and Stargate might be one of the better responses against a player like Clem. In particular, on this map, I like it a lot as well, because even though there's a tucked in third that GunGfu could end up taking, there's a lot of airspace behind to maneuver between the natural, the third, and the main, right? So I like the Phoenix approach. Maybe that is what Clem is looking to counter. It's kind of like a classic response to it, the 3 barracks.
Yeah, because if you go too many Phoenix and you don't know it's 3 racks, which sometimes it isn't because you hold those Phoenix back, you don't scout with them. If you don't start prepping the gateway units and the batteries in time, you will just roll over and die. The Phoenix can lift up a few units, but by the time they have sim and stuff, these Marines are going to be overwhelming. So, yeah, it's very rough for GunGfu if he decides just to sit in his base with these Phoenix. And if I'm GunGfu, I really hope that by the time he finishes the second one, that's when he's like, okay, maybe I just go and scout now anyways. Because obviously right now you're hoping to hide them. Clem flies in with a Widow Mine drop, and then boom, you reveal them, you shut down the mine drop, it does no damage, you clean it up, and then you go on the map. Okay.
Greedy GunGfu. I mean, he really wanted to save that probe without using a lift, ends up using the lift and losing the probe anyway. So, yeah, a little bit of a problem there for him. And of course, yeah, like you were saying, the Marines can get overwhelming when there's a 3 racks opening, simply because Phoenix rely on their energy to trade it for a unit. They lift up! No, don't! But yeah, Marines are the cheapest unit that Terran can make, right? So the liftoff is going to be the least valuable out of all liftoffs. And yeah, I mean, GunGfu's going to confirm now that that's what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a bunch of Marines, right? What's GunGfu gonna do? Like you see this kind of late because he waited until the second Phoenix. Obviously, he got scouted with the Reapers, so at that point, you may as well reveal the Phoenix across the map. But yeah, I mean, it could have been the first Phoenix that scouts this, right? And then he could have had a bit of extra time to prep. The Robo Facility's gonna finish. He needs to build an Immortal immediately because he just needs something on the ground that can try and hold for as long as possible. And I don't think an Immortal can necessarily always make the difference, but sometimes it will. It's the best option he's got. So get that Immortal out, and even then, Clem's probably feeling pretty good. It's the Protoss, he hasn't taken a third just yet. You're forcing him into more and more units. Even if Clem doesn't attack into this, he can just say, cool, I'm getting set up myself. My third is not going to be too far behind yours. Yeah, I don't think Clem will be too upset about that situation. So the bulk of the front, but I think he'd be a bit crazy to go in with the double battery setup.
Yeah, for sure. And especially with the amount of adepts that GunGfu has worked in, these units are not really going to scale that well, but they are the best possible unit that he could be making at this stage against the Marines with his current setup, right? You were talking about the Immortal. He had to make an Immortal simply because you have to use your production, right? And he would have loved to go into that Colossus a little bit faster into potentially Disruptor drop or something of the likes, but most likely a Colossus, of course. But yeah, he just couldn't afford to. And now, I mean, Clem is going to back away at least. So didn't really accomplish much other than forcing GunGfu to make units that are not going to scale that well and not going to be that useful moving on.
Yeah, I like that though, right? Just the forcing of units, and then you're going to still have a big bio army because you never lost anything. This would have been terrible if Clem kind of attacks into that. Those units have been forced to be made, but then they're made useful. Now you're just stuck with them. You didn't clean up any bio for them, and well, Medivacs are hitting the map, and you're on your way to what? Your first Colossus just now. That's your first bit of splash damage. I'd be really worried for GunGfu on any map that isn't Moondance, because if he was taking his third base out in a forward location, he'd be in some trouble, as the Phoenix do great damage here. But yeah, my point is the saving grace of GunGfu is the fact it's an in-base third, so that at least is nice as Clem comes across the map. Let's see if he wants to even try the idea of pushing forward. I feel like that would still be surprising at this point, though.
Yeah, Clem made a little bit of a mistake. They're dropping the mule in the face of the Phoenix, but I mean, GunGfu repaid him in kind by not picking up the mule, right? Which is, I mean, so much more valuable than an SCV at this stage, and that's the only reason that I bring it up. But yeah, I think you're right. I don't think that Clem has the pushing power right now. He is taking a third behind this, so I think he's just going to be happy with the map control that he's attained. Nice observer by GunGfu as well.
Yep, just watching everything, obviously, and that's really nice. And it means that if we do see a little attempt to jump in the main base, he should be fairly aware of it. So should be fairly limited in what he can do, and just going to be seeing GunGfu taking a brave step forward. Clem looking at it, he's almost thinking about just diving right. If you can just quickly grab the Colossus, then there's not really much else there.
Yeah, if the Colossus falls, that's pretty much it for the game, I think. So you got to be really careful going into that open area that Clem was holding, and Clem makes it even more open by breaking the rocks. So I love to see him thinking on his feet like that, right? He recognizes that GunGfu wants to potentially break out of this contain and breaks the rocks to make it easier for an escape or even just spread a little bit wider.
Yeah, absolutely is. Well, Clem just going to drop a second starport down. He knows he's playing Phoenix Colossus now. Why not just stack up that Viking count as high as possible? The Vikings are going to be great against the Phoenix. They're going to be great against the Colossus. It's exactly what you want, and to some extent you need a lot as well, because if you just make a moderate amount, the Phoenix will help the Colossus survive through the first round of Vikings, and you're in some trouble. And great control of Clem, watching, seeing a probe on the left-hand side, trying to establish a base, just gets an extra kill here. Just controlling the game well on his way to a Ghost Academy, and even though not a lot of direct action has happened, it feels like Clem is exactly where he wants to be. He says, okay, you're playing a very safe style that I cannot really kill you with, and that's great. But now I'm able to get into all of the tech I could possibly need to deal with this style in the mid-game, because you've not been able to do anything to me. I've not lost units unnecessarily. To me, this is, like I say, still the sort of position that Clem loves to be in, especially when he's the favorite in a game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to GunGfu's credit, he did pick off like 8 SCVs with those Phoenix. They did a great job. The problem is they didn't really amount to much. If we look at the workers count, it's Clem that has been able to catch up, and he's barely one worker behind, and he still has mules to work with as well, right? So, yeah, maybe GunGfu dropping the ball a little bit on the pro production there, and maybe not expanding as fast as he would have liked to that fourth due to Clem being out on the map as well. But I think GunGfu's holding his own. He's making some cool moves as well. I love the shield battery and the cannon that he added in the main. As soon as he recognized, okay, like I have had this Phoenix, but I'm not adding any more, and he still has the threat of jumping into my main, right? So that extra little bit of forethought to kind of like account for how good Clem can be at the multitasking, I love it. And yeah, I think this is still anyone's game.
Yeah. Your point about the economy as well, it's one of those weird ones where because he takes that back base as well, he only has 1 gas, he only has 6 patches of minerals, so his worker count never quite gets to keep on increasing as much. So then having the delayed fourth is a bit more impactful than it would have been on other maps. So yeah, some benefits of Moondance and some negatives of Moondance at the same time.
Yeah, very good point. And yeah, I mean, Clem, he's just gonna chill back for now. We're gonna see one big engagement at some point. And you were talking about the Vikings here. They are up to 11 now, so that's going to be plenty to deal with the anti-air of GunGFuBanDa and the Colossus. Of course, if this was were my Vikings, they would not do much. But yeah, you need so much to control this sort of Terran army. It is so difficult. It is so daunting. And of course, we know that Clem is up to the task.
Oh, that's not nice, losing the
Yeah.
Prism already, as we see these Adepts. Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, what Adepts really meant to do is Clem is pushing at
Yeah.
the front at the same time, though. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not too sad the Adepts come in, because to me, Adepts aren't exactly going to be the greatest unit, but I guess it would have been nice to still pressure and use them at a bit of a better time. And sometimes you kind of just want to get rid of the supplies so you can use it elsewhere. This is a great fight from Clem, man. He's not letting these Vikings take anywhere near the damage that threatens them. The Phoenix are all gone. One of the Colossus dead, and he was just so conservative with his EMPs as well, right? He was just very careful about dropping those EMPs down correctly and putting himself in better and better spots so far.
Yeah, and I really love, like, when you watch people like Clem play. Oh, what? How did? Okay, I guess it wasn't the warpers of that probe. Yeah, it just dropped the pylon inside the main of Clem. That's crazy, but yeah, I really love to watch Clem play because positionally he's so very good, right? Like, he's kiting back the army while EMPing, while doing all of this. But as soon as he turns the corner, he actually takes such a good position with the Vikings in that dead airspace to where if GunGfu wants to continue chasing, he's gonna take pot shots. And he knows that he has air superiority right now, so GunGfu cannot afford to do that without the Archons actually outputting damage onto the Vikings. So just beautifully done from Clem there on the retreat, just taxing his opponent as he goes. And yeah, I mean, both players are still nearly maxed out. Let's see what happens here.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, obviously one big fight can swing either way. Both players, in theory, have the tools they need to take a decent fight. Whoa, Clem, big pathing issue. That's bad.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly the sort of thing that GunGfu can capitalize on. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
He's going to try as well, and he's chasing now onto open ground, so that is nice for him. Clem is going to take shelter here up the ramp and going to hold his ground here at least for a brief moment, as GunGfu's not going to want to go up that choke. And another War Prism here in the main of Clem hasn't been tended to from GunGfu, or Clem for that matter. But yeah, good moves from GunGfu. Oh no.
Not in range of the turret, and now there's a single Marine that will get rid of it. That's so unfortunate, right? It's just one of those little things that he probably should have been okay with, and now he isn't. That's very unfortunate, like I say.
Very much so, for sure. Now, Disruptors are out. They are going to be super important here. The Archons have lost a little bit of their power in that many Ghosts being out at this point. And that's where the Vikings get really scary too. So GunGfu's going to have to really, really zone out with these Stalkers. They are so important to kind of keep the Vikings at bay. And these Disruptors, of course, they have the maximum potential. They were both just spent now, so GunGfu would do well to retreat. And maybe he can hold down this low ground now.
Yeah, that's the benefit of Moondance in a way as well, right? That while it's short, there is a lot of ups and downs to maybe utilize in your favor. Man, the Vikings just delete one of the Colossus straight away here. EMP's ready to go down. It's going to hit everything. And even though the Vikings are taking big damage, the Colossi are not going to have a lot left over. The only benefit is, of course, Clem couldn't get through the choke because of the Colossus fire. So now we go back in. One of the Colossus goes down. Clem has reinforcements showing up. Disruptors firing again, but it just feels like GunGfu's army is on the verge of just falling apart.
As is Clem's, though, to be honest. I mean, those Marauders, one good Disruptor shot will do it. The problem for GunGfu there, and why he couldn't chase us, his army was lacking, like, consistent DPS, I guess you could say. And now the Zealots are joining in on the fray, and I mean, if he can get a good flank, I think that GunGfu still can very much just win this in a fell swoop against Clem. He has managed to take a 5th base as well, but of course Clem already there and taking another base already, or at least making a CC, getting ready to do that. So pretty good game.
Yeah, actually a really fun one to start the day off with. Clem's EMPs feel so threatening every time. Like, they always hit like a good target to start, and if GunGfu's like, I feel like I can still do this, he hits like 2 more that definitely make GunGfu second guess whether he wants to take a fight or not. So that spellcasting's been on point from him, moving into some libs as well, some zone control. That's the sort of disruptor that could do very well, but Clem paying a lot of attention here, and loses a ghost, going for the disruptor that doesn't go down, so missing there. A little bit of a missed kind of thought process, but we kill off an Archon still. He start to kite away, and Clem obviously, as long as he's not eating disruptor shots in general, should be okay in fights like this. And now we have to deal with these DTs, but instantly pulling the SCVs. Boy, is Clem just on point today. Yeah, he is playing so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, you want those Zealots to soak up shots from the DTs, but in this particular instance, they actually give the heads up to Clem to react very fast thanks to that sensor tower. So maybe would have been better this time around to just go with the DTs so that, you know, you don't make it so that Clem has the ability to react as quickly as you know he can. Oh, wow.
I mean, the splits are good, man. He's really limiting what GunGfu can find with these disruptor shots. I was a little worried there because obviously if Clem gets pushed into a corner, that's where disruptors can actually land shots guaranteed. Vikings with the Liberator showing up as well. This shouldn't really do enough at all. The Planetary Fortress is looking like it's easily going to hold. And he didn't even have that many SCVs repairing, so it's a heck of a hold. It's a lot of resources invested and doing nothing at all for GunGfu, and so failing him on the bottom side of the map.
Yeah, and when we talk about Clem, Raynor, we talk about their speed, but also again when it comes to positioning, not just of the army, but even of the buildings, right? There's so little surface area on that planetary fortress that GunGfu keeps going on to. So yeah, we can look at that and talk about it later, as Clem is actually just going for it here, holding that high ground to his advantage. And it is an open space now after having broken the rock, so that's gonna be a little bit easier to go up and down for him against these disruptors, of course. And yeah, now GunGFu's gonna go on the other side, try to make something happen, not let Clem establish the space. He's gonna be a little bit quicker to it, but just with Stalkers, and that's not what you want. He will get rid of one of the Liberators, but no more than that. And yeah, I mean, this base now under threat.
The problem is with GunGfu is his army is such a mobile, like, out on the map army, which is great and all, and ping-ponging between these bases is the right thing, but what is he then going to do about these Liberator counts getting high? I see a Stargate just finished building, but feels like he's a long way off from getting stuff like a good Tempest count or anything that can really push through a higher Lib count. So all Clem needs is one moment to get across the map with the Liberators, and then GunGfu is basically playing, probably for his best bet would be some kind of a base trade or counterattack, but Clem would have to have that in mind. And his defense is just permanently great everywhere at the moment, so...
It is. Oh, okay. No cancel on that CC. But yeah, I mean, just 5 DTs feels like a little bit disrespectful almost, right? It's like, it's Clem, man. He's gonna repair it. He's gonna repair it quick, so you're gonna need a little bit more burst damage there.
Yeah, 5 doesn't usually get the job done. And not when Clem is playing like this, like you say. Like, you've already seen reason to believe that's probably not going to be enough, so... Yeah, maybe a little bit more needed as the Lib just goes forward. This army just keeps on getting pushed away, and Clem just keeps dealing with this so well, man, so comfortably, so calmly, continues to split without losing anything.
Okay. That's a good amount of zealots, and they're gonna go after a CC. I mean, give Clem the heads up. Maybe he'd do well to just run all the way back or split his army into the main and natural. At the same time, these Immortals, this is a lot of them, so he's actually gonna get rid of one base before Clem can get sieged up. So very good job from GunGfu here. Will lose a Disruptor for his troubles and actually manages the recall as well. Beautifully done from the German player here.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I know I'm probably casting a little bit in Clem's favor because I'm expecting him to pull it out, but it is credit to GunGfu, right? He is making a game out of this. He is making this competitive. He's got a decent bank. He's gotten his base count up. I mean, I see the Tempest coming in now. I still just wonder if he gets to enough in time, because it does feel like Clem is also very aware of the fact, like, hey, I feel like you're not going to be on this army forever. So I'm going to start taking advantage of this a little bit. And right now, I feel like these Immortals are such an interesting unit because you don't usually see Immortals in this number, right? And they're not going to help against the Libs. Once they get EMP'd, they're kind of soft, so they're not that tanky either. I feel like those Immortals might be eating up a lot more supply than they're worth, as we do have a great counterattack down here. Clem probably just has to let this base go, try and hold that attack elsewhere, as we do see the first couple Libs showing up, and he's getting rid of some of those Liberators with the Tempest. So good job once again by GunGfu.
Yeah, holds the position really nicely here, even blinks forward, and will pick off a few Vikings on the retreat. And Clem, I mean, he is out here on the map, and not with his entire army, so maybe GunGfu can look to punish. Again, I think the problem, like you alluded to, is he has a lot of army tied to those Immortals, and they are going to be great against the Marauders, but not good against anything else here. And yeah, I mean, Clem will take care of this position right here without any problem. On the other side, GunGfu is already taking a new Nexus, identifying that this was going to fall. So good on him for staying alert, and now the Tempest in there, a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, just gotta keep those Tempests in a safe place, but we are getting to a good Tempest count, and that was one of my big questions. Is that something that we could actually do as GunGfu? And his answer to it has absolutely been yes, as Disruptors being a little bit disruptive as well. Wow.
Hells yeah.
I mean, I'm being more and more impressed by GunGfu as this goes on, because it does seem like he's had a plan. Like, all the questions I've had for GunGfu, yeah, moments later, he's like, yeah, look, this is how I'm going to deal with these Libs. I'm not going to be in trouble here. And he's kept up these run-bys and counterattacks as well, which is kind of essential. Even when Clem's been good at dealing with them early, he's not been disheartened to keep going with them. And that's been important because it has been a form or way for him to find some damage eventually in this game.
No, absolutely. He's been keeping a great form throughout this game. Here, he's stayed on par with Clem really at every step of the way, it feels like, right? Like, with such a mobile army, so difficult to keep up with a player like Clem. And these Disruptors especially, I mean, they are not the most mobile. Okay, the Tempests are going to get a little bit caught here. Good blink on the Stalkers. Storm just finished, but as it finishes, all of the Templars will get EMP'd. And with that, Clem will take a very strong position, but his army's a little bit far away. GunGFu will not capitalize this time around with the Stalkers as there's very few left. And yeah, I mean, this is a strong position for Clem.
I mean, that's what Clem was looking for this time. He finally catches GunGFu off guard a little bit, and the Templars were left alone. The Stalkers kind of blinked in to try and save them. They died. The Templar got EMP'd, and just everything fell apart in a few short moments. And that's where Clem will get you, man. He will just keep on looking for these fights, and eventually he finds a great one. Ace on the left side and 24 probes denied. Little run by on the right side, shut down at least so GunGFu can keep the top right base up and running. That's Clem getting set up in further forward bases himself, and now just going to rotate his main army back around the other direction and just forces such a big rebuild from GunGFu. You know, warping in Stalkers at this stage of the game feels expensive, and oftentimes the unit you want to be warping in here 21 minutes into like a TVP, because they're expensive, you'd rather go into other tech, but yeah, you need some amount of Stalkers still.
For sure. These 4 Templars lagging behind could be a blessing in disguise, but no, actually they're going to cut by the scan. So only one pulling forward there to try and get a storm up. We'll get a storm, then get EMP'd right after. And yeah, both of these armies, I mean, they are very mobile, but also very strong positionally, right? Like when they get in a strong position, it's so difficult to dislodge either the Liberators on the Terran side or the Disruptors on the Proto side. So we see now GunGFu taking a good position. So answering punch for punch, blow for blow, and he will take down this Orbital Command alongside a couple of Liberators. The Templars do get scanned, but hey, no EMP, not fast enough anyway. So good storms go off. Now Clem does have the rest of the army trapped here. And GunGFu's gonna have to recall perhaps those Disruptors if he can get to the back there, but maybe no recall available as he hasn't used it yet.
Absolutely devastating for GunGFu because his Disruptors just weren't far enough forward. He got flanked a little bit, which he wasn't quite expecting straight away. Minor connection there. And yeah, in the end, the Disruptors are so far back. I even think one of his own Disruptor shots hit all of his Immortals. So just not in position. Like he got too enveloped in the place he was at, because what he was doing was great. The position he initially put himself in was fab, so he didn't play around what Clem might be doing about it. And because of that, Clem takes a fantastic fight, and honestly a devastating one, because GunGFu struggling to get back above 100 supply, and now Clem is going to be on the offensive. And yeah, you've got a lot of stacked defense and so on, but without an army to back it up, Clem's going to start chipping through that no problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking now really, really grim for GunGFu. He really didn't have the economy to remake his army there. Maybe if he could have evacuated those Disruptors, there would be a glimmer of hope on the hold here, but without, it's just going to be game over, I think. I mean, Clem takes another very strong position here. GunGFu doing what he can to expand to the left, but yeah, this is just too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Storms keep on going down. I mean, the Storms have been pretty great, to be fair. Clem is obviously kind of just walking into them a little bit, but yeah, obviously not really enough in the end. GG has to be called, and Clem does take a first game victory. You know, GunGFu played a heck of a game of StarCraft 2 here. He really kept Clem kind of at bay, kept Clem kind of playing a long game. And at first I was like, well, it's okay. It feels like Clem's okay with this and stuff. But GunGFu put Clem in some tough spots. He put himself in some winnable fights. And in a PvT, like if one fight sways slightly more in favor of GunGFu, he steamrolls down a base too. And then Clem is really in a difficult position to recover, kind of what happened to GunGFu towards the end there. So great first game, and get to be very excited for game 2, because I didn't think it was going to be anywhere near as exciting or as close as this.
Yeah, that was very, very close. And that was with an early game that seemed to go, maybe not in anyone's favor, but comfortable for Clem, right? Like he got to where he wanted to be, and he had maybe a little bit more economy heading into the mid and late game. And that is really what I think ended up doing GunGFu in, because as far as the fights, I mean, short of that last fight that was very decisive for Clem, where he traps the army after GunGFu gets a good position, I think that they were pretty even. GunGFu found some very good opportunities. And yeah, maybe if he had just a little bit of more economy to back it up, if he had, like you said, for example, taken that a full third instead of a half third, and taking his fourth a little bit sooner, like you would do on most maps, we would have seen a different story. So we'll see what he has in store for us here on Data C.
Yeah, I do wonder as well, though, because I do feel like GunGFu was almost like using the map as a bit of a crutch to get to that mid game, because there was that point he was just equal on workers. It felt like he was only alive because he had the in-base third. And so if you don't have that and Clem gets off to a similar start, then how do you get to a third? Like I say, that's going to be a question for GunGFu in this game. Last game, every time I had a question about where he was at or what he was going to do, he was brilliant. He had an answer, he had a plan, he had a way. So I'm interested to see what the way is this time around, because if it plays out similarly, I feel like he's going to be without a third forever, and obviously that would really not be great. But of course, large map as well, so more difficult for Clem to contain and to deny. So a lot to think about as we head into Data C. We'll start by introducing our Red Terran. Up one in the bottom left-hand corner. It is Team Liquid's Clem.
And in the top right-hand side for Infernales Esports, it is GunGFuBanDa.
Love the Infernales name. Fun to say.
Infernales, I love it.
Yeah, cool team. I played in the WTL qualifiers recently. Unfortunately, I believe they ran into Onside Gaming, which is kind of an unfair fight. Yeah, Onside Gaming were like the team that just wasn't like any other team in them qualifiers. If it wasn't for that, I actually think they would have had a good run, man. They might have made it in. So, cool team.
Very cool team. Yeah, of course. Infernales from Hell, right? Like Infernales, Inferno.
Yeah,
Hell.
That's how I read it.
Yeah, I love it. And yeah, I mean, and to your point, I agree with you, Wardy. It is easier to take that back third, and so GunGFu didn't get hard punished for his opener, but he also had kind of an unfavorable opening, it felt like. So maybe he'll, have the tools to take a third a little bit easier on this map. And also, if he kind of like, he could have gone for a third, and he might have died, but if he took it, then we, it was kind of like higher risk, higher reward type thing, and we didn't really see it unfold, right? Like we didn't see whether he was going to be able to. So we might see a little bit of that in this game, but yeah, I mean, opening still to be decided.
Yeah, Clem is going to go factory before he expands those, so if he does go for something like a Widow Mine drop or so, that is going to hit that a little bit sooner this time around. And that would be something to keep in mind of. Already a second Reaper, right? So a couple of Reapers, one Hellion pressure initially. Yeah, for Clem, this is just a way of getting damage done earlier in the game. See if that's something which can develop or, initiate some actual damage across the map. There's still the expansion, just a little bit later than usual.
Yeah, how do you like this double Reaper Hellion opening? We've seen more and more in the last year or so.
Yeah, to me, it's very hit or miss. Like, sometimes it feels like it's just, what do you really gain from it? And then sometimes it kills like 3 or 4 probes. Like, oh, that's all you gain from it. But I feel like it's one of those ones that in the next month, I'd still be, if like a month from now, it's still used as much as it's being used right now, I'd be surprised. Yeah. But I kind of get it as well. Like, it sets you up nicely. I just wonder if a lot of the time you'd be better off with something else off the factory instead of an initial Hellion. Now we're going into actually like a third Reaper and a second Hellion. So this is really Clem bidding for some early game damage. And it is against a Blink opener. So you'll have a while before there's anything supporting from GunGFuBanDa to defend against it.
Yeah, you would love to see a shield battery maybe on the natural expansion to hold against something like this. There is an adept there. There's already a stalker. A Wolof would be ideal, of course, but that seems so far away from GunGFu. And
that's the issue, right? Like a Wolof against like a Hellion drop is fine, but against this, it's just too early to wall off realistically. So yeah, the adept sees it coming. There's one gateway down. The adept is pulling back. The probes are going to pull away. I mean, a good grenade here can keep the probes trapped in the low ground a bit. We kill one. The adept's taking some mega damage already as well. We do at least have 2 stalkers out, but these Hellions should probably just dive the probes a little bit and get rid of as many of those as possible. Yeah, this is fantastic, obviously, for Clem.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, good control from GunGFu on the probes, but unfortunately, he was just not set up for this. And I think that this was, I mean, everything that Clem wanted. It's 11 probes to make it 12 falling. And yeah, I completely agree with you. That double Reaper, 1 Hellion opening, it gets figured out eventually. You have enough units to account for it, and then it stops being good. So I love what Clem is doing here, because it's not like this opening is like flawless or just super powerful in its own right. It's the fact that it's unique, that it's kind of new, and that it's its own twist that will catch your opponent off guard. So I love that Clem pulls out something a little bit different here, adding on to the number of units that most players would make.
The Widow Mine walk into the natural is a new one as well. As we kill a sentry, we're going to unburrow, reburrow the probe. He doesn't quite save that first mine. He should be able to save the other if he wants to. Trying to buy as much time as possible here. Finally connects. And of course, during this, he's had a good chance to have scoured the Dark Shrine, but even if he hasn't quite properly clicked on it or whatever, he still has a Wraith, and that was started before the Dark Shrine went down. So Clem is extremely well prepared, and obviously with a very strong opening in this game too. This feels like the opening that is really kind of doom and gloom from GunGFuBanDa, because now he's super reliant on DTs to do some damage to bring him back into the game.
Yeah, it's an absolute disaster for him. So at this point, he's got to be praying to... I mean, he doesn't really even know that there's a Raven out, right? But if he knew, he'd be praying that the Raven's out and about, and maybe going for a push or something of the likes when the DTs go in, and maybe that's his best shot at making something happen in this game. So it's a really long shot here for GunGFuBanDa to get back into this one.
Absolutely. Observer out to kind of track this medevac, but that means he went obs before Prism, which I suppose is probably because he says, hey, look, the Dark Shrine's being built, so you know it's DTs. So I'm not going to rush into the Prism and get the DTs across the map. I'm still going to keep the Dark Shrine for use later, but I'm not going to actually, like I say, warp in DTs yet. He's just going to build himself a Robo Bay instead and start teching up elsewhere. I kind of hate it and love it. Like, I love it because obviously it's like, well, you're playing around what your opponent's seen and you're playing, that's kind of smart, right? Expecting them to defend it. I kind of hate it because I feel like it just isn't going to work. Because I feel like now Clem's done enough that you just had to risk it on the DTs and you just had to try and do something. Otherwise, he's going to come pushing across the map and making your life a misery.
It is going to be so very difficult, but we'll see if GunGFu can stabilize. I mean, he's going for a fast third, and that's commendable, I guess. The DT is actually aware of where the army of Clem and the Raven is because of that probe, so very nice move here from GunGFu. So kind of looking for a backstab here maneuver, very nice. Will it work? Will it amount to much? We'll see.
I do think this 1DT is the best way he could have utilized the DTs from this point, so he's going to get in, he'll get a few kills. Clem does turn around with a few units, right, as that DT is stuck on the depot. That's so unfortunate. I feel like that almost had a chance of slipping away. 7 SCVs, Clem did slow down a little bit. His medevac left alone, so in this way you get damage done. The problem is this Raven has good energy, so the Raven has matrixes. Yeah, the new DT is nice, but I mean, we've got turrets now coming up, so it's going to be tougher, and Clem is aware of the fact that this is something to worry about. Dead DT. Yeah, nicely done.
Nicely done indeed. And now Clem is across the map. His push, like you said, was a little bit delayed. He pulled his army, he F2'd it back a little bit and took Colossus, but there is plenty of energy on this Raven to disable them if Clem wants to do that. He is going to position here towards the third. It's going to make it a very difficult choke to pass through, and the Widow Mines are just going to buy time for the army to output damage onto the Nexus and take it down no problemo.
That's the issue, right? Clem almost has like GunGFu in a constant state of check, right? It's like, oh, GunGFu's like, I'm going to hold my natural. And it's like, even if you drop the matrixes, you can't come up here because I've got force fields. Well, Clem's like, cool, I'll go attack your third base. If you come out towards me, I'm going to have the matrixes, and then your Colossi can't fight, and your army can't fight without a ramp, right? So there's just no winning that situation as GunGFu. You just have to give something up. He gives up the third because that's the option that doesn't lose him the game automatically. But obviously it keeps him very far behind in this. And again, it's hard to imagine what you really do as GunGFu to get back in. You're really reliant on probably some DTs showing up a couple times over and just doing more damage than they're expected to, for sure.
Yeah, it looks so difficult now. I mean, Clem has already his third established. He's going to scout and see that GunGFu is taking his own third. So he's going to be happy, or should be at least happy, to consider just sitting back. He is just going to make sure that there isn't a fourth or a double expander or something of the likes. I wouldn't so much love a double drop that Clem seems to be considering here, as he's angling for it, but he catches the observers. He sees the observer with a Raven, rather, so will not be going for that.
Yeah, it doesn't get rid of the obs, which you maybe could have done. He's just building into Vikings, getting a proper, response to Colossi up. He will still have the full energy Raven, which, of course, if that can be used, then brilliant, because a Matrix on anything will help. But even Matrixing Disruptors, if you can hit those, then you're really taking the Hail Mary out of the, the game book, right? The game plan for GunGFuBanDa. I just feel like there's so many uphill battles to fight here for GunGFu. We'll see if he can start getting up a couple of them, because he's going to need some help saving this third base. Clem on his way to his fourth command center already. Just keeping very good track of what GunGFu is up to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what GunGFu can do at this point, right? It's really going to have to be relying on those Hail Mary disruptor shots that you were talking about, but it's going to be so difficult to execute. It's going to be so difficult to pull off. Clem with already a lot of Marauders, that's going to make it easier for him to snipe those disruptors. Even the tanks are going to serve as nice anchors against those two. So, yeah, I love that Clem is taking a more passive approach. I think in the past, like a few years ago, we might have seen a Clem that is overeager to close out the game and just out-multitask his opponent, even when he doesn't need to. But right now, I mean, he knows he has the advantage. He can just sit back. He drops down a sensor tower. He's doing all of the responsible things to keep his advantage and close this game just like he should.
Yeah. I think that's one of the big growths we've seen out of Clem, especially in this matchup as well, where sometimes being overly aggressive can lose you the game a lot more than in the others. He's been a lot happy to slow the game down and play the late game and make himself more comfortable in those situations, that he doesn't mind saying, hey, look, yeah, I'm very far ahead. I can use that lead later instead of having to use it right now. I think it's been one of the coolest things. If you look at Clem's games from 3 years ago, it's completely different. The Raven still just stays alive. GunGFu at least will get to 1-1, evening out the upgrades for the moment, but if Clem gets set up with the tanks and the Raven gets a couple casts off still, doesn't necessarily feel like that's going to matter too much. I
love that blink. It needed to be 2 though. It needed to be 2 stalkers. I mean, a little bit of a miscalculation there. Does get the shot off with the 1 stalker, but needed 2. And yeah, I mean, yeah, that Raven still has some sort of potential, but a little bit less. Clem has to be careful with it. So still the Disruptors have potential, but if you were to put bets on Disruptors, you wouldn't put him against Clem out of all players, I think, in the world. I mean, he is a highlight reel of Disruptor dodging.
Yeah, he really is. Yeah, I mean, this is just rough. You're going to start being forced to make a choice. Natural third wedge, you give up some space. Clem's going to keep on shelling. Maybe we just go in for the fight. The Raven has been in the back, waiting for its moment to shine, and now he doesn't really do much with it. Still splitting away, and GunGFuBanDa ends up taking a really good fight here as Clem absolutely messed up in this fight. Wow, he got destroyed.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant from GunGFuBanDa as well. I mean, keeping his own composure, knowing that he has enough beef in his army to where the Disruptors can keep advancing, right? So most Protoss players, I think, would have started throwing the Disruptor shots a little bit earlier. GunGFu wants to get those shots and knows that he has enough Disruptors that he's going to get some shots off. So he continues pushing forward a little bit longer than I would have expected, and it pays off. Get some beautiful shots there.
That was not the fight I was expecting to see at all, right? I mean, I assume the tank shots just didn't go where they needed to go. The Vikings didn't get rid of anything, really. The Disruptors all stayed alive. Obviously, the Raven never got a cast off. I wonder if Clem, like, started to try and cast with the Raven, and in doing that, got caught up, didn't help elsewhere. Oh, my goodness. Now the Disruptor shots are huge.
Oh, my God.
I think GunGFu is just going to take that one fight and walk across the entire map with it.
I absolutely love that. I mean, we were casting a game from Geralt yesterday where he was lacking exactly this, right? Like where he was behind and then he would catch up in a fight and then he wouldn't capitalize. And now, I mean, GunGFu doing exactly what he needs to do here, kills 22 workers in the process, a lot of the army of Clem, and actually starts taking control of a game that looked far gone from him. Amazing job from GunGFuBanDa to recover.
Yeah, I mean, this game was way more in Clem's favor than the first game was, right? And we were kind of impressed about GunGFu pulling that one back. This one was absolutely looking like Clem domination, happy to play the later game. Yeah, he messes up that one big fight, and all of a sudden, this is GunGFuBanDa's game. It's GunGFu on the map. It's GunGFu applying the pressure and kind of calling the shots here. He gets to decide, do we fight, do we not? And that is, again, absolutely fantastic to see because he was in so much trouble. So, yeah, pulling himself out of a very tough situation. And like I said, just got to love that as he pushes in here. The Vikings struggling to get in range of the Colossi. Disruptors to zone. I mean, Clem's now got to pull off a masterclass defense, but he's got Zealots and a DT in the main base as well to deal with. And GunGFuBanDa just going to hang on in here as SCVs will start to fall on this base. And yeah, I just don't think he can save this as Clem.
Yeah, I mean, these Disruptors have just been giga chats as well and so well used throughout the game, right? Like in this position, for example, he's using them to zone out, so happy to have them behind his army. But in more aggressive positions, I love that he is just throwing the Disruptors in front. Kind of like this, but maybe this time not paying attention. Has to be a little bit careful, but they just kind of say, hey, come at me. I have enough Disruptor shots that if you try to engage, I'm going to get some good ones. And exactly like this, he does it in good positions, favorable positions to fight with those chokes going on. And now he's going to retreat after killing one base. Beautiful force fields here to buy him a little bit of time. The Stalkers will blink away. And a couple of Disruptors will be forfeit, but it's well worth it for GunGFu still.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There's no way it isn't. Clem's entire main base is on fire. This orbital is going to have to lift off. I've just got Zealots for days in the main that Clem doesn't really have an answer to. If he's pulling back to deal with it, then the rest of the army's going to come forward as well. Blinks, I feel like almost trying to catch the medevacs, really, not just get on top of this base a little faster. As yeah, this is just GunGFuBanDa all over this game number 2 after a rough start once again. He pulls it back, very comfortable, just kind of wait, and finally finding his probably one moment to get something done. As an orbital goes down, Clem probably just picking his moment of GG here. He's going to run around a little bit, try and find a chance, but he's losing base after base. He's going to be on 1 CC after this. Orbital gets shot down, so yeah. GunGFu obviously with plenty to go with. Yeah, this game's over, man.
It's over, and now GunGFu has to just. I was tempted to say that like you know 10 minutes ago, like it wasn't over, but I mean, looking at the names as well and the pieces that they had to work with, you really wouldn't have expected this to go in GunGFu's way any day, really. And yeah, I mean, taking a very good fight, GunGFu, in that choke, in that very enclosed situation where Clem really couldn't kite back that much. Really, I love the use of the disruptors. I cannot stress that enough in the way that he did it. Just very unique, very different approach to most players. And yeah, I mean, GunGFu is taking it to Clem. It's going to be a tight series.
It is going to be a tight series, and yeah, I just really didn't necessarily expect it to stop. Definitely didn't expect it with the way the games are going. I'm going to be cheeky and have a very quick rewind of this fight because it was just something else, man. Like, it was really just not the expectation as GunGFu gets a map. His reaction on the camera is great because I feel like that's a reaction of someone who knows, like, he dodged a bullet. I gotta figure out what went so wrong for Clem. Like, he loses the tank so quickly. I think he's trying to control the Raven as well, and then he miscontrols it back so he doesn't get any casts off. The Vikings aren't target firing. Yeah, he's just constantly running away from disruptors then.
Because there's like 5 or 6 pushing forward together, right? And they're like, come at me. And Clem's like, that's too many. I'm not coming at you. And there's not really enough open space for him to spread out or really, so that was, that's what I mean with the disruptors. Just, you don't see that, right? Like that often, like most Protoss players keep their disruptors to zone out behind their army to kind of protect the Terran encroaching onto them. But GunGFu was like, here's my disruptors. What are you going to do? I love it.
Yeah, I mean, Clem basically set up for like a long, kind of drawn out fight, and GunGFu took the fight and just ran straight in. And looking back, I'm like, well, Clem's army was a bit mismatched as well. It's like, it was 3 tanks and like a handful of wood of mines that weren't really in the best of places, because again, it wasn't set up for that army to come as far forward as it did. And I think that is what obviously gave you kind of the biggest issue as Clem, because yeah, things did not pan out the way they were meant to in that battle. And what a way to swing it around. GunGFu, it kind of gives me a bit of hope, because what if he just gets off to a good start, Cats? Like, what if the first 5 minutes are like good for him? If the build orders match up well, he doesn't lose a bunch of probes to Creepers and Hellions or whatever. I mean, if he enters the mid game in a good position, like, I mean, he would be dominating this series, quite frankly, because both games he's been drawing it back from a deficit in the early stages, no doubt.
No doubt. And yeah, I mean, I think that fight also, you were touching on the tanks. I think the Stalkers also blinked right away. Beautiful blink to open up for the disruptors to follow on through and to pick off a tank right away as well, which was really nice. So yeah, I mean, I think in an even situation, Clem doesn't push through that choke, right? Like, Clem doesn't go in that deep in that area when there is no base there to contest or anything like that. I think he was looking to close out the game, and I thought, yeah, you have all the right to close out the game, and you know, I think you thought so too, and I think he thought so as well. So a little bit of overconfidence from all of us, and I'm sure all of the chat also thought that he was fine, but big props to GunGFu to capitalize there.
Yeah, I can't say it enough, man. It was, like you said, you would have said the game was over, like, you know, a minute or so before that fight. I was completely have been behind you, and I mean, that's why we can't say those things too soon, because sometimes crazy things happen, and that really was a crazy thing. So yeah, we get to go to a game 3, not really expected. Great way to start the day off, and players are just now readying up, so we're going to be in that game 3 in a moment. It is inside now. It's another one of these shorter maps, although Protoss sometimes don't mind the layout of this too much, but maybe again some openings for Clem's early game to kind of shine.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, this is a very exciting series now, and Clem has to be getting a little bit of deja vu, because he has lost this very series before against this same player in the group stages. And GunGFu is very much showing that he is up to the task, that he is prepared for this particular matchup. Harston was saying earlier in the chat, like during the first game, GunGFu doesn't lose late games. About 30 seconds later, GunGFu lost that game, but you know, maybe GunGFu doesn't lose mid games because he is looking like a beast. However, his opponent, rocking the Beatles haircut, it is Clem.
On the left-hand side, bringing us into a much more exciting series than we maybe imagined it was going to be. From Infinales, it is GunGFuBanDa.
Oh, I like that pylon. I'm always looking for new wall-offs for my own Protoss gameplay, because my wall-offs are just so terrible. I like this one, right? It's very long, and it looks like that one pylon will allow for the other building to close things off on the left as well. So that looks very cute.
That's a cool little start, for sure. Definitely a cool way to get things going. Protoss SimCity, man, is something. I was casting some games on some old maps the other day, and it's like, it's funny how much like Protoss get punished by playing on like different maps, because if you don't remember the tricks of the walls, on maps,
Yeah.
then yeah, you get punished so hard. I was like, man, Protoss players. This is why we can't have like nine maps in the map. Protoss players, I don't think could handle it. And that's not a slight at Protoss players. It's just like they probably are the most affected by like little things on the maps more than anything else.
Yeah, for sure, you're right about that. You have to be so careful placing your buildings and knowing whether the corner will be good enough for your Zealot or Adept to actually hold in between, or if there's a hole in there. And yeah, all of these little things that pros are so adept at, but the rest of us, we try and it's like, oh, I guess that wasn't a wall off. Happens far too often. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it wasn't a wall off minus some MMR. These guys a little bit more serious than a bit of minus MMR on the day. So yeah. That probe finally goes down, man. The SEV nearly had it initially, but Reaper does clean it up, so not too much of an issue. Nothing too exciting at the end of the day. And it's just going to have our Reaper coming down to the bottom side then. Obviously, this wasn't like a super aggressive opening or anything from Clem, so just a friendly Reaper to kind of get some scouting done and try and figure out what the first tech of his opponent will be.
Yeah, the Adept will shade on forward to try to contest the Reaper there. Most likely will have to cancel the shade in order to keep his high ground and continue shading just to kind of be in two places at once, which is the job of the Adept at this stage in the game. The Reaper is to be denied the space here, and again, that beautiful wall-off from GunGFu will buy him time if the Reaper does get inside. So yeah, things looking pretty standard here. It's going to be a blink opening by the looks of it from GunGFu, and we have a Hellion in production from Clem. So yeah, is there anything to read into on the turn side of things from this Hellion opening?
I guess it depends if you build more than one Hellion, because right now you could get a Hellion just to support the Reaper. Maybe the Reaper hits the main, the Hellion runs into the natural, and then it's just like a bit of a scout. Obviously, if he makes a second Hellion, then we start talking about other things. But that's a tech lab, so it's just that kind of aid in scouting, so you can try and get the information, which so far he has been lacking, right? So yeah, this Hellion will help him with that. And then, of course, you got the tech lab on the factory. You got an option from there. You can go tanks. You can obviously go Cyclone if you feel you need to. In this case, tanks straight away is what you want against the Twilight Council opener, so that's what he's going to be looking for as this Reaper comes through. Going to start hitting these probes a little bit. Going to get one. Still hasn't seen the Twilight, though, because he went the wrong way with the Reaper.
Yeah, still the Hellion does get inside, but I don't think it accomplished much of anything there as the Adept was still waiting for it. So, yeah, good defense from GunGFu and doesn't really reveal his tech either, so very well done.
Well, Clem just goes into the Raven, right? It's a pretty good kind of catch-all. The worst case for the Ravens, it's Phoenix, and I feel like he's like, well, even if I didn't see a Stargate, I feel like I would have seen like a Stargate unit flying around somewhere or something, So I like the Raven. It really does cover you against Twilight builds, which is probably what he feels like this is. The tank follows up, so that helps you against some of these Blink Stalker attacks. And yeah, the setup from Clem is very good for what GunGFuBanDa is playing. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We go into double racks and then an engineering bay behind this, and we'll set up on our two bases for a while. This is where we kind of just play forward from.
Yeah, this is kind of a, like you were saying, like a middle ground approach from Clem, but it's not going to be particularly strong against anything that I was going to say that GunGFu was doing up until this point as he drops the Robo Bay now. And of course, the bigger the unit, the more efficient, the more effective the disable is going to be from the Raven. So yeah, GunGFu looking to maybe go into Colossus soon and just to try to secure his bases to try to have some AoE against growing numbers of Marines.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. Obviously, Hallucination gets to see pretty much everything that Clem is doing and everything that he's already built. So, full of info right from the very start. See the subs just coming through the bottom side of the map as well. Just not really very useful just yet because you're about to have a Nexus here to spot. So, we'll see what else he sends that, get his map control set up. But I like him, man. Just going to go in a charge, get Colossi set up already. And we'll see if Clem can find any openings or any weak points in the setup of GunGFu in the near future.
Yeah, that's an interesting Immortal too. It feels like he has read into this move out from Clem really well, because otherwise I don't feel like the Immortal was necessary or even good, right? It would have been just a little bit of a waste. It's a very expensive unit. But given that Clem is looking to move out, it could be fantastic against his tanks.
Absolutely will be fantastic against the tanks. I feel like Clem doesn't need to be pushing. It was not a very fast third base from GunGFuBanDa, right? So he's taken all of his tech initially, and yeah, while the Robo Bay doesn't necessarily help straight away, there's still almost a Colossi out here. I guess you've got the Raven to shut a Colossus down, so that's going to be one of the big parts of this is, yeah, if Clem can get set up and cancel the third base, considering it's already been late, yeah, then this might be an issue. I mean, there's no super battery. Even if there was a battery, there'd be no super battery, right? So quite the problem with that Raven in play. That Matrix is looming, and you can absolutely tell that that's something that GunGFu does not want to be up against right now.
Absolutely, and yet he's going to take the engagement. Very good blink forward while the tank is unsieged, however, so that's going to net him one of those pieces. The Immortal now turning his attention to the other one, and with that, it looks like GunGFu will be able to hold here. I mean, the Raven is decommissioned, or rather, the Colossus is decommissioned for now, but now comes back online. The Nexus under heavy fire. The Raven goes back in to disable the Colossus once again, but I think that GunGFu, with good focus fire onto the Marauders from the Immortal, could hold this no problem, and that is a commitment from Clem that gets pushed back. GunGFu in a pretty decent position here to start.
Yeah, he shuts it down. He defends the attack. It was well done. He had to be patient because of the Colossus. The Immortal investment was absolutely what he needed. And he even blinks across, cleaned up a couple of additional Marines toward the end. And GunGFuBanDa, and if he beats Clem, he is going to cause a heck of an upset in this group. And I gotta say, I didn't actually think GunGFu been playing too much ahead of this event. Like, you know, usually you see him in a couple of Open Cups, and so I've not really seen much of him at all. But yeah, you come in, you beat a Clem. I mean, then you're making a pretty good run for the playoffs already, because then you just have to go, you know, against everyone else in the group and do okay. That Clem victory is going to lift you a lot against your opponents that are kind of fighting and scrapping around the 3rd and 4th place in this group.
Yeah, because they're all going to lose to Clem. So,
yeah, usually.
You know, that's always good to know. That you have basically a free victory on top of everyone else that isn't Clem, that is pretty much every day of the week guaranteed to advance from this group stages. So yeah, looking pretty good for GunGFu here to cause the upset, and Clem is looking to continue on with the aggression, doubling down on that. He is looking to catch GunGFu off guard here, and he is now going to turn his attention to the mines, to the Widow Mine drop in the medevac in the bottom side of the map. So GunGFu is going to have to look out for that. Here they come. Nice
he's been on point, man. Yeah, he's not let the Widow Mines catch him off guard throughout this series so far, and that's not going to change up at all just yet as we relocate and we mix it around a little bit here. A couple of shots will begin to go off, and yeah, I mean, some lost mining time, but that's pretty much all you're going to find. Still nice, of course. Clem's main army tries to come in. That just costs him a couple of units as well, so yeah, GunGFu got to be feeling decent, although I do feel like his worker count is down from where it wants to be, and again, I feel like he doesn't get the 4th base up as quickly as you'd usually see Protoss players hitting that 4th, so he's kind of stalling on 66-ish workers, and that is a problem, because now the Terran has 3 base economy plus mules on top of it, so then they can do well. Yeah, so a couple of mechanical macro-focused errors here, I think, from the GunGFu is definitely keeping Clem a lot more in this game than he maybe would have been otherwise.
Yeah, which fair enough, right? I mean, he has been tested by Clem through and through. It's been a very active game. Only 1 pylon on the way, now 3. Okay, that's much better, but he's still going to hit a supply block at 141 here, I think, GunGFu. And yeah, I mean, from what we've seen out on the map, GunGFu should be ahead, but when we actually look at the game, Clem is ahead, and that's just by virtue of him being a little bit cleaner on the execution here.
That's something the Widow Mines drop cause as well, right? Like, you drop the Widow Mines in, and yeah, they don't really do much. They force GunGFu to dance around for a while. That's the moments where those mistakes happen. If nothing happens, GunGFu is good enough to make pylons,
of
right?
course,
to,
yeah.
You know, get a 4th base start. But those are the distractions that Clem can draw this game back. So even though nothing's happened, it kind of was that Widow Mine drop that's probably forced those mistakes and given Clem a better opportunity. So still, we've seen GunGFu in definitely worse positions than this and win out. So we'll see if Clem's maybe learned from those scenarios, learned from the positions that he lost in, and see if he can turn them into some better situations this time around. As a result, from the right side is going to get shot down, and now everything from Clem. Still pushing down the left. Good map vision from GunGFu. He has that observer in the center that just watched this entire army move across that bridge, so he knows exactly where Clem is at pretty much any point in time.
Break the rocks, maybe? I'd love for Clem to break these rocks, and otherwise the map is much more open than the previous map, so the errors that we saw from Clem in where he committed are going to be much more difficult to replicate if he's looking to lose a fight here, right? Which obviously he's not going to be. But yeah, as long as he breaks those rocks, I think on this map, the map will become very wide open, and then this army of Clem will have a lot easier of a timing or of a time dealing with what GunGFu has.
Yeah, open space is just kind of the enemy of GunGFu. With this kind of army, especially because it's still very... it's Colossus disruptor focus. It's not leaning heavily on Zealots, which would benefit from more space. So, yeah, more space definitely gives Clem more room to work with, and that's generally going to be good for him. Sets up on his left-hand side. GunGFu's there to meet him. We are almost at maxed out armies here. GunGFu is the one that's missing a little bit from being maxed. That's most in workers, as we do get great force fields, though, and that is going to be a bunch of free kills to start out with. Stalkers can blink forward freely as well to deflect the Vikings. That was a great start to this for GunGFuBanDa, getting some much-needed value at the beginning of a big fight.
For sure. The MP will deny the Guardian Shield, however, which is kind of a really good tool that I wouldn't say it's underused so much as underappreciated sometimes, right? It's 2 armor is so much against this type of Terran army, so not going to be available for the fight here. And yeah, Disruptors now posturing here. These corners are also pretty good against Disruptors, right? Like the little debris in the middle. It's going to make it difficult for those Disruptors to turn around and get the shots that they want.
Yeah, they have to go, because they have to go around the corner, they don't go as far in the straight line, right? So they just can't connect as easily. I actually thought that was great for GunGfu. If you like went further north, I know it becomes scary because then you're maybe inviting a base trade, but I feel like Clem was looking to come back across, and if GunGfu had seen that with an observer or so, I think he would have just gone up towards that base and then just said, yeah, push up a ramp into me to defend your base. If that's what you want to do, I'm absolutely fine with that fight. And if nothing else, I'm ahead on the days trade because you hesitated about going across the map yourself. He just didn't have the information to really execute on that move. He's going to move up here this time again. This time it's a bit different because Clem's already back at home as he hit some good EMPs to start. This little army shouldn't be enough at the end of the day, but Clem should have time to bring his army from the right back across, but he took a little while before he brought it over. Looks like GunGfu again is not going to make his way up that ramp though.
Yeah, but he doesn't know how far away Clem is, so I think it's fair enough for him not to commit. There are a couple of ghosts fall here to the Disruptor shot, which is really nice from GunGfu, and now he's going to continue to push on forward. He has to be a little bit careful, especially with the positioning of those Vikings. Again, Clem using that dead airspace to get himself a good position, but maybe overextending a little bit, as now he is just flying over the Archons and Stalkers. A few Vikings will fall, but not really enough to justify the losing of the Colossus from the side of GunGfu. The Disruptor shots, however, will have something else to say about that, but they have all been spent. And now Clem is on the chase. Will take down a few units, trying to tax GunGfu here for the use of those Disruptor shots simultaneously.
Yeah, that felt like a moment where GunGfu should have been able to hold his ground, but without the Disruptors on cooldown, yeah, he's going to have to back it up instead. And that becomes really expensive because a couple of those Archons had no shields left on them. The Immortals were kind of low. Just a lot of expensive units that get picked off very quickly towards the tail end of that. I think it's getting better for GunGfu still. Shadow Stride finishing, so you can introduce some DT harass into his play as well. That makes that last fight even maybe more devastating though, because now the DTs become a real investment, whereas before they could have been seen as more of just an addition. Now he's kind of choosing between rebuilding a lot of his tech versus adding in DT harassment. So yeah, I mean, he does go for the DT harassment, which I think is the right call, don't get me wrong, just would it be nice to still have like a bulked up army and those DTs striking at the same time?
Yeah, so great job from Clem capitalizing there, but a little bit of over-eagerness from GunGfu, who is now has chosen the DTs like you were saying, and he will actually get the juice that he was looking for those. And actually, Clem not paying attention to a few SCVs, they will fall. So GunGfu taking the lead in terms
He's done it.
All the SCVs, GG is cold. And GunGfu